but we're only going to focus on 5 right now, okay? Because Dusty just reminded me. Mahomes at 1. MVP Josh Allen, 2. Joe Burrow, star quarterback, 3. Lamar coming in 4. And then Jaden Daniels at 5. Right now, we're just going to focus on Burrow being ahead of Lamar. Brew, are you okay with this?
No. Look, I get it. Joe Burrow is great. And, you know, obviously, we all have the same top. Everybody has the same top 4. And
I don't know that everybody has the same top 4.
Really?
I don't think Wilds does.
Yeah, I do.
You have Burrow ahead of Jalen Hurts?
Hey, Joe Burrow, you know.
So I
The guy throws the ball all over the field.
Okay, all right, that's fine. You keep going.
No, but you know what? I am going to put Jalen Hurts at him.
You're the only one on no.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Burrow is excellent. He obviously fits that tradition. He's 6'4", stands in the pocket, throws the, as you would say, pillowy ball. Accuracy is incredible. I understand that, and I'm not taking anything away from Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow also hasn't been to the playoffs since 2022. The playoffs, forget winning some playoffs. He hasn't been there since 2022. And he's got arguably the best receiving core or duo in the league, arguably the best in Jamar Chase, and then you have T. Higgins. Yeah. And Lamar has Zay Flowers, for as solid as he is, and Rashad Bateman, who's hurt a lot. Like, Lamar doesn't have near the weapons that Burrow has, and Lamar is so much more accomplished. Like, accomplishments come in this thing.
Yeah, you would
think.
Right?
And here's the graphic of their accomplishments, because neither has a Super Bowl. All right? Lamar, 2 MVPs. Twice as many Pro Bowls. Burrow's never been all-pro. That means you were voted essentially the best quarterback in the league that year. And then the win percentage, Lamar's is all-time great. And so accomplishments matter.
Yeah.
And otherwise, well, that's why some guys look at Justin Herbert and say, oh, he's a top 3 quarterback or a top 5 quarterback. If you're just looking at him, and he looks good. But to me, you got to put Lamar ahead of Burrow.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. After last year, the argument for Joe last year is the unbelievable stats. Lamar's stats were historic last season.
Yep.
And the knock on Lamar is he doesn't play his best in the playoffs. That still probably trumps not playing in the playoffs. You know, and so like that. And so I disagree. At least for me, Brew, I've thought long and hard about this, and I tried to kind of figure out exactly what I thought on this last week on the air with, like, it's a top 5, but then, Jalen has to be included if we're going to include Joe. And then I thought about that. I'm like, I'm arguing a take I don't actually hardcore believe.
Here we go.
That it's a top 5, that if Burrow's there, Jalen has to be there, because I understand the argument against Jalen, and I understand the argument for Jalen. I don't think it's until Joe Burrow has a healthy, successful season, and they at least get back to, miss the playoffs, contender status, which is, I think, a fair thing. And I also think when we talk about his numbers, if you want to negatively curve the numbers because they spent all their money on guys who help his numbers, I just think it's a top 3.
Oh, wow. So you don't.
I think that it is. Here's what I think is very, very difficult to argue against. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. I understand 40% of these NFL executives dinged him. It still means he has the majority versus the field. Right. It is not consensus, but vast majority opinion. The second and third best quarterbacks in football are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, or Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. And then after that, we can start arguing. I think that you have to be willing to move off your priors. And I was a guy who 2 years ago said the second best quarterback in football is Joe Burrow. He then got hurt. They then and started slow, then got hurt again, and the team fell off. They actually won half their games with and without him, but whatever. They missed the playoffs.
They played well with the
then Browning. And then the next year, he did not play his best, at the very beginning of the season against the Patriots or against the Chiefs. And, you know, they start off slow, and then when they catch fire at the end, it's too late. Like, if someone wants to say they value what Jaden or Jalen or my guy Matt Stafford did or has done, I at least think it's an argument. I don't think it's a fair argument to say Joe Burrow's better than Lamar, because it's very hard to make the stats argument when Lamar almost won MVP again because of stats.
I agree with
and the availability argument used to work against Lamar. You know what I mean? Lamar was the guy who had been injured a couple times in a row. Now Lamar's been basically an Iron Man, except for when he catches his winter cold. And so I think that it shouldn't be a top 4 right now. I think it's a top 3, and I think that's the fair way to look at it.
Brew, does this hold any water for you? Career head-to-head, Burrow versus Lamar. It's not close. Lamar has 6 wins to Burrow's 1. Lamar's got total yards here, 300 to Joe's 284. I assume Burrow has more passing yards. Touchdowns to turnovers. I mean, Lamar's got it.
Lamar's is better.
Yep, and passer rating a little bit better for Lamar. But the wins are what really jump out.
A little. I mean, it's not a huge thing for me, because I understand in that division, Cleveland actually has a pretty good record against certainly Burrow, and Pittsburgh obviously has given Lamar trouble. So that division, those teams are pretty evenly matched in a lot of cases. So
I just think
I mean, it's a little something, but I think the other, like the things I mentioned, the MVPs, the All-Pros, all that, is a bigger factor to me.
Here's what is relevant to me about that. If Lamar has been an equivalent passer to Joe, then Lamar's better.
And last year he was.
You know what I mean? Like, if their passing numbers are even somewhat close, then Lamar's got to be better.
On that graphic specifically.
Oh, yeah, but on that graphic, but also last regular season.
Oh, okay. I mean, Joe Burrow would argue, like, it's unfair. You get to pass against the Bengals defense.
No,
I got to play against the Bengals defense. You guys get to play against them twice.
No, I get that. Lamar's, I don't think it's flaws. Flaw is very, very specific for me, and it is very hard to use that against him when we don't know. Maybe the playoff loss to Mahomes made Joe Burrow go from Joe Cool to Joe Shaky, and he's going to be terrible in the playoffs. We don't know, because he hasn't. I doubt that's the case. Shiesty, Joe Shaky, I don't know. Because he hasn't been back in the playoffs since then. That's my point. We got
to move on.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Joe Shaky. That's not gonna
work?
catch on.
Okay, thanks.
Filling out the top 10 is Stafford. Came in at 6th behind Jaden Daniels. Then it was Herbert, Goff, Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, and then the Bake Show. Are you surprised? No, I moved on. Sorry. Are you surprised that Jalen Hurts is behind Herbert?
Yeah, I'm going to let you handle the Jalen Hurts love part of this.
Do you see all the notes that I have?
No, I don't.
Usually
but I just
copy off my paper.
That's right. I
like how you copy off Brew's tape.
I find my sports takes from Kevin Wild's brain. It's true.
Wait, I may say something here.
No, but I just know you, and I figured you want to do the Hurts part, and you also don't like to be mean, and this is going to come across as a little mean.
It's not supposed to be mean.
What I'm going to do is about Herbert. I mean, come on, man. He's the same high school class as Nick Bosa. He's the same draft class as Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. Do we consider them based, like, what we think of those guys is based on what they one day will be, what they could be? Or is it no? They're on well into their second contract, all-pro awesome. Justin Herbert is obviously has a bunch of measurables, but he has played 81 NFL games at this point. 81. And he's never led the league in anything except for last year. He led the league in interception percentage, unless, of course, you include the playoff game, in which case he fell right to the middle of the pack when he threw more picks in the playoff game than he did in the regular season.
You know what everybody likes, just quickly, caveat? The first 5 years for him.
So,
most yards ever.
He was something.
No,
the numbers were crazy.
No, and it's still true. Like, the most passing yards ever through 5 years is him. I am not as moved by that because some of that has to be with I know Brady wasn't putting up huge numbers, but guys like Brady, Mahomes, and Favre didn't play their first year. Aaron didn't play his first 3. You know what I mean? Like, so that to me, he has been durable, and I think he's very talented. But when you have played in 2 playoff games and 1 de facto playoff game, and these are your numbers compared to your regular season, I have a fair question over whether or not you're not a big game guy. And when in the last 20 years, worst passer ratings in the playoffs of any quarterback who's played at least twice, the list looks like this, where you're on it with a couple of guys who played for the Texans. We can show it to you, I think. If not, tell me, Dust. There we go. TJ Yates, Andy Dalton, Herbert, and Osweiler. To say you're better than the guy who was doing what, Wilds?
Well, he's 6-3 in the playoffs, and what's his touchdown? 20 touchdowns, 4 turnovers for Jalen Hurts, and also Super Bowl MVP. So that's big games. Here's the other argument, bro. This is the core of the Herbert Hurts thing. You tell me if you agree. Herbert threw for 900 more yards. Herbert racks up the yardage. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball. He can't throw the ball. That's the big knock on him. Although we do see him throw the ball in big moments. Against the Steelers, he threw the ball. I think he had 220 in the Super Bowl. So I just looked up like an average game. It beat the Giants 28-3. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and threw a touchdown to A.J. Brown. Saquon can't be stopped in that game. That's the game where it's like, hey, do you want to break the record? He threw for 114 yards. What do you want the guy to do? You want him to throw for 300 yards that game? That's when I try to say wins are a quarterback's at. They're winning that game easily. He has 3 total touchdowns. He threw for 114 yards. He's got a few games like that. If you go through his game log, like, we're easily winning. I'm not taking my foot. This is my path to winning. It doesn't fill up the stat sheet. The touchdowns were. But that's why I think one of the reasons his yardage numbers are suppressed. And people always use it as a cudgel against him.
No, I think that's very fair. And look, a few years ago, I had Justin Herbert ahead of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, of course.
You know, he does look like a better pass. And at that point, Herbert was in that 5-year window where he was throwing 30-something touchdowns a season and things like that. But now with what Hurts has done the last 3 years in the postseason, great in the Super Bowl, they lost outside of the fumble, and then obviously great last Super Bowl. Like, there's no way you can put Justin Herbert with his playoff struggles ahead of Jalen Hurts. Here's the graphic that just flat out compares what each of them has done in the postseason. And to me, this is huge. And it's interesting that you see, I mean, 2 and 4 touchdown turnover ratio to 20 and 4.
Come on.
Like, look at the passer rating. And it's interesting that one of the arguments, Nick, for these same executives and scouts, et cetera, to put Burrow ahead of Lamar is, like you said, probably they're saying, I mean, Burrow's clearly riding off that victory over Mahomes in the playoffs, and Lamar hasn't been at his best in the playoffs. But then you do the exact opposite with Herbert and Hurts.
And by the way, last year, and this, I know we have to move on. Yeah. Last year, the San Diego, I'm an old man now. I'm calling teams their old names. The Los Angeles Chargers asked Justin Herbert to be Jalen Hurts from 2022. Yeah. We have the #1 defense in football. We're going to run the ball, take care of the football, and he did it. And his numbers were suppressed. He had 21 touchdowns, 3 picks. And then in the playoff game, he lost them the game. Yep. And so Jalen, that year,